So I actually just got asked a question, and I'd like to go ahead and take a moment to answer it real fast. I'm in my car right this second. My son's in the back; he's asleep. So I'm gonna try not to wake him up, so that way I can answer this real fast. An artist over in the UK, a tattoo artist, he asked me how much I would recommend that he charges. Now that's a very hard question to answer because there's a lot of variables, a lot of things to take into consideration. So what I'm going to try to do is try to cover that as best to my ability on how I would base that answer. And also I'm going to kind of tell you where I came from and, how much I started off at making and charging and why, and where I'm at now, and try to go through that as quickly as I can. So let's start there. So, when I first started tattooing, I first started getting interested in it, it was in prison. I actually didn't do tattoos in prison. I had other reasons why, but as soon as I got out, I started, I got like one of the little kits off eBay or whatever it was, and started tattooing my friends and stuff. They kept asking me to do it, so I kept saying yes, And at first, I was just doing them for free. I wasn't charging anything. I didn't know what I was doing. They all were very aware of that. And the tattoos look like shit, to be honest with you. Not nearly as bad as they could have been. Looking back, actually, I think I did pretty good, but they still was obviously not professional quality. So I was not charging professional prices. Then I got into very quickly. I managed to put myself into a position to where I got into a shop. The only unfortunate side of that, or one of the unfortunate sides of it, was that the shop was known for being cheap. So at the time, in the state of Florida, the industry standard, you could easily say in the state of Florida, the United States, is somewhere between $75 and $150, $200 an hour, something like that. And back then, the owner of that shop, that particular one where I started off at, he was doing 3-hour sessions for $100. In fact, he was fairly well known for that. So at first, I knew I could not tattoo as fast as him or as good as him. So I needed to be comparable to where I thought I was at and what I could get, to be fair to myself and to the clients, which is always kind of where my thought process goes with all this. I always want to be comparable and to be fair, to fair to myself and fair to the clients. But I did not think they would pay more than that time, whether they would or would not. I didn't think they would, and I didn't think I could perform good enough. I was comparing myself to the owner of the shop. So I think, as best I can remember, I want to say I was doing like 4-hour sessions for like $75 or something at the very beginning. Something crazy cheap, like ludicrous. And mind you, I'm buying all my own supplies and all this other stuff, I'm paying to be there, so it was a struggle, right? Fast forward, a year and a half later, I decided I was tired of the crap there at that shop, and I did what I needed to do to get enough money together to open a little tiny shop of my own. I was not ready, to be honest with you, but I still did it, and I was still successful. It was just the best situation for me at the time. But anyways, so as far as pricing goes, when I opened up the new shop, that was a big thought process for me. At that point, I was very aware of other shops, in the same city as us, but also just in Florida and in the United States, and they were charging a lot more per hour than I was. I'm charging like an average of 30 something an hour at this point, because at this point I'm doing the 3 hours for $100 myself. So I could do 2 or 3 of them a day, make $200-$300 a day. That was not very good money, in fact, but at the time it was enough to get by with. And then slowly over time, I consistently raised my prices and changed the way I organized my pricing and scheduling until I got to the point to where I'm at today. And today I do 3-hour sessions for $450 and 6-hour sessions for $850. I average around $150 an hour. This is, I don't know, maybe like 8 years later, something like that, 7-8 years later. The other people that work with me at my shop, they kind of have the same thought process that I did back then. I have a lot more time, and I'm just faster. I have a lot more experience. I will say that, because they're doing awesome. I do not want to knock them, but they utilize kind of the same thought process. They tattoo that I did when I first started, except they're in a better position and they're doing really well. So I have to give them major props. So for example, the one of the guys that works with me, he started up there as my apprentice. I taught him how to tattoo. He's been working for 2 years for me now. He makes $350. Yeah, $350 for 3-hour sessions, and he makes $650 for a whole day session, which is 6 hours. So he's making good money. You know, the other gentleman that's up there, he does amazing as well. He's just a little slower, just the way he tattoos. So he charges, I believe it's $305.50, I think, for his half day and whole day sessions. So all of them are clearing $100 an hour. Now, that's kind of was my thought process in the way that I would dictate pricing and stuff like that. Now, something very important that I want to throw out there, though, when it comes to pricing, keep in consideration, you know, this is a business. You know, if this is a business to you, if this is something that you're going to generate income with and rely on this income on one level or another, and that you're going to pay your bills with and stuff like that, you need to treat it like a business. So, you know, at first, you know, like the gentleman in the UK, the artist there, I don't know a whole lot about his situation just yet, but from the little bit he was telling me, he's in a situation where he's taking this very serious, but he has a family, and right this second he's just tattooing his friends and stuff, and he's trying to get into a shop, and he's trying to move forward with it all. And I can attest from personal experience that it's a very, it can be a very rocky road for a lot of people. You know, we're not all equal in life as far as obviously skill and all that stuff, but also just life opportunities, you know. So with that being said, what I'm going to suggest to him is based off a few factors. You know, first off, is this a thing whenever you're and I'm going to suggest all this to all y'all, whenever you have a thought process and this comes to how to price things, you need to ask yourself, why am I doing this? You know, if you're the type of individual that is doing this purely just for enjoyment, which is an amazing thing, I mean, that's great. If you're doing it just for that, then the prices really don't matter, you know, honestly. So, like, who gives a shit, you know? The tattoo, the products are the things that we use every day in and day out are relatively cheap. A lot of people's going to say, man, they're so expensive. Yes, I have a couple machines I paid over $1,000 a piece for. I have like the nice, pretty much the nicest, you know, stuff that you can buy nowadays for it. But honestly, even then, you know, we're still talking pennies to the dollar for what we can charge for this stuff. So it can be a very lucrative career for the right people at the right times and the right situations. But, you know, if you're tattooing at the house, you know, and you don't care about the money because you're doing it for fun, then, like I said, who gives a shit how much you charge? Don't charge anything, or just charge like $20 or something, or whatever number that you come up with in your head that sounds good. Tell them, you know, because it doesn't matter if they say yes or no, and it doesn't matter if you actually make money or not, because you're not reliant on it, right? Now, let's say that you're in a situation where a lot of people are, and I know a lot of other artists that would totally just smash them for this, but I'm not that guy, because this is how I started off with. But if I'll get into all that later, the details of my thoughts and all that on this thing later. But if you're the type that you're tattooing, you know, at the house or whatever, and you're starting to generate clientele and trying to figure out, you know, how to charge and all that stuff, what I would suggest you do, all right, because this is what I've done in the past. In fact, I'm going to just be a little bit honest with y'all. Like, for example, during COVID, I had to put down the deposit because I had just came back from Texas. Somebody here had burnt my house down. I had to start completely over, and then pandemic hit, right? And just put down the deposit for the building to start another tattoo shop. Well, they closed all the tattoo shops, so I had to keep the money coming, you know. And a lot of the other things, you know, happened that put me in a financial situation that is not comfortable. So I just started having people come to my house, you know, and I was making really good money like that. And the way that I priced it was I averaged about $50 an hour. Now, that's not a tremendous amount of money, but if you think that is $50 an hour for me walking into another room and tattooing as many hours a day as I want, because I was very, 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 very fortunate to have a crazy clientele base. So I made really good money like that, honestly. But obviously it's not where I want to stay, because, you know, I mean, proof's in the pudding. You know, where I'm at today can prove that. But now the way that I would suggest for a person to do this, and this would kind of apply to all across the board, if you're in a shop or whatever, look at all the people in your area, right? And get a, reach out to them if you have to. Go get a tattoo by them if you have to. Whatever you got to do, but do your market analysis and see what the average cost is going around you, average hour rate, whatever. And then base off of that, are you in a shop or not? If you're not in a shop, you need to charge a little bit less, unless you can get them to pay it, and just keep consistent clients. But if you're looking at over here, and let's pretend for a second that kind of keep this simplified. If you look over here and this guy is doing a tattoo and a shop, and he's charging $100 an hour, we'll just say, keep it simple. But your quality is about 60% of that, right? And you're not in a shop. So I would suggest that you probably should charge $40 or $50 an hour, Now, all these numbers I'm throwing out there are just hypothetical numbers I'm making up off the top of my head. Nothing is set in stone. But that's kind of would be my thought process. And then when I get into a shop, obviously I would charge more because I'm in a shop now. There's a lot more taxes and laws and all the other stuff that surrounds all these expenses. So I need to charge more. And I'm in a shop, so I'm going to charge more just purely for the fact that I'm in a shop and not in a living room. So, and then I'm still going to do the same thing. I'm going to look around and I'm going to say, what is my level of quality based off that I can perform at? And I'm going to be really honest with myself. And I'm going to look around and I'm going to say, okay, well, based off of all the people around me in my general vicinity, whether it be 10, 20, 30, 50 miles, 100 miles, whatever you set that at, that's how I'm going to come up with the pricing. Now, what I will say though, and some people may bash me for this, but I am going to say this. At the end of the day, whatever you do, just make sure that you feel you're being fair to yourself and fair to the clients. But at the same time, if clients are happy to pay it, then charge it. And I'm going to tell you why I say that. For one, the more money that you make off each tattoo is the less tattoos you need to do to make that money, right? So I would rather do one tattoo for $100 than 4 tattoos for $100, right? And also, in my personal experience, what I have come to realize was 2 things actually. Instead of gaining a lot of clients for charging less at the shop, as I raised my prices, I had a lot of people tell me that they came back to me because they were scared to come at first because I wasn't charging enough, because it was too cheap, and they were worried that the tattoos would not turn out good. The quality would not be there. Even though it was, I understand now, looking back. And also, too, a lot of my client base, I've realized, is way, way, way better now that I charge a lot more money, in all honesty. And I'm not trying to bash people or nothing like that. I'm not saying that you need to go to an expensive place or deal with a bunch of rich people or whatever, but I am saying that through my personal experience, I've noticed that the more money I charge, the better the clientele base gets and the less problems that I have throughout all of them, dealing with them, just the interactions and day-to-day or whatever. It's all way better. Oh my God, I can't even go into all that right. So I'll go into that later. But that's kind of how I would dictate pricing. That's what I would, kind of how I would do it. I would, just like any other business, I'm going to kind of look around at the competition, do it like a market analysis on, my, the vicinity that I'm at, the area I'm at. And based off of that and what I know that, and being honest with myself, what I can give, and I'll go from there, Now, sometimes what I also will say too, now keep in mind, man, this is kind of a tough one right here, and you just have to make the call, but I'm a firm believer, for the most part at least, you can always go up on prices, but it's real hard to go down. All right. So, as crazy as that may sound to some people, but that's the truth in my personal experience. You can always go up. It's hard to come down. So I would not go up too fast, but I would, I kept raising mine, and I will continue possibly to do that as I see fit in the future, if I do so see fit. But I'm never going to go down. I have no intention or desires to go down unless I'm doing something for charity, which I try to do a lot of stuff like that. But otherwise, things like that, I'm not going down on the price. But what I did do at first, though, one thing that was good was that I did a lot of tattoos, or at least my thought process is that I'll charge a little less to get a lot more clients. And that kind of worked out. But that's also because my level of quality of what I was able to provide was not there yet. if I could go back in time, which obviously is impossible, but if I could go back in time and I was able to give them the level of quality that I can now, then I would charge what I can now, you know, or relatively close. And I'm a firm believer that I would get plenty of clientele because the product will sell itself, you know. And just always, you know, this is a side note real fast, but just always be courteous to people. Be honest with them. Let them say no and let them walk out the door. If you know that what you're giving them is quality and they just don't want to pay it, that's okay then. Let them go. You know, let them go because they're not the clients that you want. But at the same time, if you're giving them some shit that's not good quality, or like the quality isn't up to par yet, and they're understanding that and they're willing to still get it because they think it is, then and you think that you're being fair with them and doing as best you can and everybody's happy at the end of the day, even though some people will bash me for saying this, then I still think it's okay. You know, some of my favorite tattoos I have on my bodies are not the nicest ones, actually, as crazy as that is. So yeah, that's kind of my answer, I guess, on how I would price things. If anybody has any more questions relative to this or something else, ask the question. I'll give the answer as best I can. Anyways, God bless, man. And I guess here's another episode of Will Talk Real Talk.